Alright, let's try it here on YouTube to give this assignment training. So unfortunately, we cannot continue with our live session in Zoom, but hopefully this one can serve as an alternative for you. I will open up the comment section for this video. So if you have any questions, you can post there, but that's not guaranteed to receive immediate attention. So I would advise you to still contact your lecturer or myself if you have any questions after watching this video. And if anyone start posting impolite messages in the comment section, please understand my decision to close the comment section if that happens. So I hope that within this session we can cover as much as possible. Now we don't have the interaction, so I think we can cover a little bit more. Let's see. Here is a disclaimer. The disclaimer tells us 3 points. One is that this training is an extra session to help you to get familiar with the new way of testing. But the knowledge required is exactly the same. So the assignment will cover the same scope as a normal final exam should. So that means chapter 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the syllabus will be the content of the final exam, will be the content of the now alternative solution, which is an assignment. Which means if you practiced with the lesson plan, every week did the homework and did all the exercises in the syllabus, you should be fine with the test, with the assignment, regardless the format of the assignment. I would like to remind you, especially you need to look into the chapter 5 previous test, because even though we will ask you to do different things, but the structure will look similar than the chapter 5 of the syllabus. Please do that. And the second point is that this training will not cover all the possible instructions and will only to indicate what kind of assignment results we are looking for, but not will tell you exactly what should be the questions and what can be the answers of those questions. The third point is that your CCE company and function should provide a context to differentiate your work to others. So that means that you should use the CCE company of your own and the function of your own to base the assignment on. Then we cannot have a HR manager in a certain company twice, right? If it's possible that there are 3 people busy with a certain department within a company, that only limits the scope to 3 people to have the same context, same company, and same function. That's very easy for us to detect plagiarism. That's the main idea of using the CCE company as a context. However, if you are worried about memorizing all the details of your CCE company, if you haven't done that, if that's cancelled, or if you have done it so many years ago because you're a reciter, do not worry. You just need to remember what products you had, what kind of company you had, and base on that context to create your data set. I will give you a more concrete example later, but for now, I just want to make sure you know that we are not testing you about CCE. We just want to prevent plagiarism by giving you a context. So Let's go ahead and talk about the strategy of tackling this new assignment. And first, I would recommend you to make a list of all the topics on the syllabus. So we have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, but there are many topics within those chapters. It's easier if you make a whole list of those chapters and a whole list of the topics covered. Then you know, oh, probably for pivot table I should practice more, or probably macro is not clear to me yet, or probably the query for access database needs more of my attention. So in that sense, when you have the list, it will help you significantly to structure your knowledge base. Once you have that clear, then you can read the assignment context, which is posted on Brightspace. I can quickly go to Brightspace to show you this. So here is a Brightspace. We posted the context in both the site for block 4 and block 3. So don't worry about which block you enrolled yourself in. But for reciters, it's very important for you to enroll for academic year 1920 and either block 3 or block 4. And under content, you will find this folder called assignment. This new folder called assignment, and here is the document I'm referring to called assignment context. And this set of slides are already available on the Brightspace, also under this folder. So this one is the slides and this one is the context. Please read this context very carefully, and there are many things you can do already to prevent problems or to set up things that for your assignment on the assignment date. So the exact instructions for what to do will be released only on the assignment date itself, but this one should already give you an idea what you can prepare. We will also cover what you can prepare in this video. I hope that part is clear. Let's go back to our presentation. So the second part is to read the assignment context carefully and then prepare as much as possible before the assignment day. Later with the example, you will see what I mean with prepare as much as possible. There are certain things you can do already right now. And if you decide to not to do them and only to do them when the assignment time frame starts, that's also possible. We have 5 hours scheduled for the assignment, and if you decide to do everything on the assignment date, be my guest, and I think you should be able to do it within 5 hours anyway. But if you prepare before, it will definitely reduce your stress level and also help you with the assignment. Start as soon as assignment instructions is released. That's probably already covered just now. So start immediately. For example, on 19th, it starts at 9 a.m. Then just start right away without knowing how much time you will spend on the assignment. Could be 3 hours, could be 5 hours, could be 2. But among IT lectures, we kind of predicted you probably need 4 hours to complete the assignment. So make sure start as soon as possible, and also you want to avoid uploading your assignment all in one time, like say 10 minutes before the deadline, half hour before the deadline. And if that's not going through, probably will create a lot of frustration for you. So keep that in mind. Now let's dive into one of these strategies one by one. First, the list of topics of the syllabus. So this one is my attempt to summarize all the topics. You have quite a few basics functions like sum, int, round, average, count, count if, sum if. So there are many small functions in chapter 1. Feel free to enlarge that part for yourself to make a list of all those functions. And also we covered input control and buttons, macro, conditional formatting, pivot table, if function, v or h lookup function, and most importantly, the combination of the two. The combination of if and lookup, or the combination of if and operators, the operators including or, not, and and. So there are three operators we covered. So the nested function will be a difficult part for you, but also everything else is equally important because we will not exclude any information from the syllabus, say that's not in the exam, that's not in the assignment. So anything is possible to appear in the instructions of the assignment. And in terms of access, we learned mainly four things: table, form, query, and report. How to create them, how to link different tables together, how to link the form to the table, how to create a query for a table, or how to create a query that look up information across tables, and in the end, how to create a report based on a table or a report based on a query. So there are many more details within Access. Feel free use this one as a framework and then add more information to it. The last part is project. The project is a very small part in the syllabus and we only spend one lesson on it. So if it's in the assignment, it will also be a very small part. To cover that part, read through the chapter 4 and do the instructions of chapter 4 one by one should cover that part. So that's just an attempt. Please make sure that this is not the official list. So if you want to make a list, you can go into much more details. The next one is about the context. You know where to find the context now, and you know what that's about at this moment. And if you have taken the CCE course many years ago, or you even took the course that's even before the CCE time called Young Entrepreneurship, YEN, that's not a problem. That doesn't matter how many years it passed by. I assume you still remember what kind of company you have done. Is that selling perfume like my company in 2013 did? Or is that about selling phone case or sustainable jeans or anything? So I believe all the students must remember what you have done for the CCE project. At least what did you sell? So that's actually just what we need for the assignment. We don't want to test you about CCE knowledge, how to run a company. No, it's not relevant for IT, but we do need to prevent you from copy each other's work. So we said that you have to use the CCE company as the foundation of the data set you are using. So what the company is about and what your function is should be enough to provide us with a quite unique context to start with. And from there on, it's just a matter of IT knowledge, to create tables, to do those functions, and to make sense business-wise. That's a very important part. Is you can create a function, but you also need to tell us what kind of problem is that function solving. Yeah, but I will give you an example later if that's still not clear. Yeah, the next part, preparation. What can you do before the assignment date to accelerate your process or to just save some time? There are, in the end, you have to upload all the documents. So that document will that portfolio of documents will include Word, Excel, Access, and if applicable, also project. So maximum 4 documents you need to upload on Brightspace on the assignment date, and at least 3 if the project is not included in the assignment. By the way, I sometimes say exam, but I meant assignment. So now we don't have a final exam anymore. We only have multiple choice and assignment. Okay, so with those input ready, then you can practice with different scenarios and imagine what we can ask. It could be use the VLOOKUP function to find certain information, or use the combination of if and VLOOKUP to find a certain information. Use the input control to control the input of a certain cell that refer to some data in the table that you created. So these are all possible instructions. Yeah, but let's just go right into practice, shall we? So we will try with our imagined scenarios. Of course, we don't know what the instructions could be, but we can start with preparing the Word, Excel, and Access, and then we build up bit by bit from there. So first of all, let's open up an empty Excel sheet. Let's open up an empty Excel sheet. And of course, later we will also need to have an empty Access. We can actually just open it right now, even though empty, but we know we need it. And also, nonetheless, we need a Word document. It's very important that before you do anything, just save it first. Save it to somewhere that you know that you will not forget, and also with the format that the instruction will ask you to. For example, the instruction, if the instruction will ask you to type in your class number, and then your last name, and then first name, then student number, then you just do that. But specifically, I don't know what's needed in the instruction, but save that in the right format. And you will need to know where to find it back. So after all the hard work, you don't want to close this document and cannot find your documents anymore. So save it. Now I save it on the desk. I better check it whether it's really on the desk. Here we have the Word, and later please also do the same for Excel and Access, so you can put them in a safe place and always checking that if they're still there, and always saving it probably every 10 minutes or anytime you remembered. Just limit the risk of these technical issues as minimal as possible. Here in the Word, first you write down your name, student number, and class. That goes without saying. And then you can start writing here according to the instruction. It depends on what kind of instructions you will be handed to. It could be the first one would be company description, and that's something fair to predict. Description. If I can still spell, no, I cannot, but that's not a problem. So company description here is what you can prepare. And probably there is a limit to how many words you would have. So it's okay if you can prepare a longer version and then probably delete certain information when the instruction is released. But the company description is certainly needed. So what about the company? Yeah, let me just give you some examples of what to cover. Uh, what's about the company? Please make it as concise as possible. So the company is selling this and that, and we are a team with how many people, and then the structure uh, of the company and your function. So that one is needed. So the what's the company is about and what your function is about. So that is enough to cover the company description part, and that's something you can already prepare. And second, it depends on what's asked in the instruction. Probably it's already asking you to create certain things in Excel or in Access, and you need to explain yourself for the business scenarios later. But let's leave that for now. By the way, you should have the same numbering as the instruction shows. So if you don't need to write down anything for question 2, question 3, but in the instruction for question 4, you need to write down something again, then we start with question 4 again. I hope it makes sense to you. So for now, we stop with Word, but let's go back to Excel. Okay, now we are staring at this empty sheet, and I can imagine for many of you it will be the first time to create a data set by yourself. So I understand that you probably will feel a little bit insecure, a little bit uncomfortable. That's all understandable. But since this is a new way of the testing, I hope this example can help you to overcome that fear of creating something yourself. You can do that certainly, just that we never let you to do it, and now you can actually experiment by yourself with your CCE company. So first, let me just think in terms of the exam. Probably the first sheet, double click this, you can change it to about me. It depends on whether the instruction asks you to do that or not, of course. And then probably you also need to write down your information here. And this is just an example. So probably you also need to write down your information here, just in case if something goes wrong, we can still see whose work is who. So that's the first sheet. And the second sheet, you can add the second sheet and double click and change it. Normally in the instruction, it will tell you what name to use. So make sure to use exactly that name. So let me pretend myself to be an HR manager. And I will use the context of my student company back then in 2013 as an example. And I will pretend I'm an HR manager. So back then, I tell you a little bit more about my student company, and that's the information we probably need to write down in the Word. for the first part. So that's a company with a name uh, which is French. I cannot pronounce, but I can certainly copy paste there. That with the name of that, and we are with 14 employees. We sell oil-based perfumes for the price of €5 each. My role there was an HR manager, and my responsibility is to take care of everyone, keep track of everyone's progress, and keep track of the tasks of everyone. If someone is not functioning, I may issue warnings, I may have talks with them, and that's my responsibility. So, what I just said is what I expect from you when you are talking about the company description. No more. I think that's doable. So, given the context that I'm a HR, what do I need in the Excel sheet? So, without knowing from which part I should start, but I can easily fix that if the instruction to ask me to move the table to a certain part, we just cut that and copy, for example, from starting with A1 to starting with E5. We can just easily do that. But first, what we can do already is to have a draft table. So what we have here is an HR administration. So what could be in this administration? Employee number, a name, and then do we need gender? We, yeah, it's totally up to you. It's just make your own choice. So let's make sure we have gender, we have salary. So whatever makes sense for an HR manager, because that's a context I have set. Salary, what else? City, nationality. Okay. So we have uh, 6 columns already. So with this draft table, if they ask us to make a table of 7 columns, then we can just simply add one. If we were asked to make a table with 5 columns, then we just delete one. No big deal. So with the employee number, oh, it doesn't show the all the others. That's fine. So that's number 1. Also number 2, and we can use 14 because that's what I explained in the context of my CCE. And I can just write down all the names, right? So I will pause my video here and write down all those names and come back when I'm ready. Okay, I just wrote a bunch of names. Feel free to just use your own data. So that's at least we have names. And then we have gender. So male, Young is male, Bell is female, Alex male, etc. So let me finish this. Okay. And the salary. Say I have €9 per hour. Yeah, we can probably also write down here per hour. So we really need to create a table that's functional for the business scenario. So it should make sense in the business scenario. So here we have 9, and we just create a list of different numbers. All right. And the city and nationality, I will stop the video again and come back when I fill them in. Okay, now I have finished the table. So this is the table that we can start with, that despite what the instructions is. So we do have the context, we do have our functions, and we do have a small data set that fits in the context and functions. And this one should be unique. And with this, we can solve the problem of plagiarism. So if anyone else come up with the similar structure or similar information of this table, even though it's not hard to make this table, but if you have a similar table, it's so obvious for the IT lecturers to see that you have copied someone else's work. So that's the intention of the context, no more. So that I keep emphasizing this is that do not be scared about the CCE context. We are not asking you to to prove that you did excellent work in CCE. So here we have this basic table. What can we do with it? This is what you can prepare. But now, from now on, I'm talking about with the possible instructions, what can you do? So probably the instructions will ask you to restructure the table or to format the table or to highlight certain information. So let's try that. Let's say if the instruction tells you your table should start with the cell C5, not from A1, but C5. So when you already have this table, you can just cut it and copy it to C5. And now you have your table here. So that requirement is fulfilled. And if we need to have one more column, that's fine. And if the instruction tells you, please have one more column in the fourth column of the table, that will be this one. That should show not a list of numbers, but a list of say decimal numbers, not whole numbers, but decimal numbers. We can do that, so we can insert a column here, and then we know we have to use decimal numbers, so we need to come up with some information that fits the instruction but also makes sense to our context as a HR. So what could that be? That could be, say, salary scale, and that scale could be 13.2, for example. So that's a decimal. That's it's a second step of the scale 13. So let's try that. This one could be 9.5 and then 5.5, etc. So we will just quickly fix that. And by the way, if the salary is the same, amount, then the salary scale should be the same amount as well, right? So in the end, we still need to make sure that our information makes sense. So if 9 is 9.5, yeah, we don't know if the scale is counting as the lower the better or higher the better. So in this case, we probably defined the lower the better. So if the scale is with a lower number, then the salary is more. Okay, so with 12, probably we have 6.2. And because we said 12 is 6.2, then the other 12 should be 6.2 as well. And 13 is 5.5. 10, it should be between 9.5 and yeah, so it's and 5.5 and 6.2. So let's give it 8.1, and we have another 9 here. 8.1. I hope with this example it makes sense that even though you should add certain information as instructed, but still should fit in the total scenario, right? So after you have done this, if the instruction asks you to explain the logic of the new information, then you can write it down in Word, saying the scale defines the salary, and the lower the scale, the higher the salary, and the salary amount correspond to the scale indicated. And that will be a perfect answer. Now we have 11. We never had 11 now, so that's between 6.2 and 8.1. So let's give it 7.4 as a scale. And 12 is 6.2, and 13 is 5.5, and 9 is 9.5. Yes, now we finish the table as instructed. We have the decimal numbers in this new column, and if that's the instruction, we just completed it. And if we need explanation here, then we just write down here within certain amount of words as instructed. What else could be asked? For example, the formatting. Let's say now it's all raw data, and probably it asks you to centralize everything, make it center, and also make it bold if it's a column name. And let's make it fit as well. All right. And there could be the instruction to say, okay, make the column number 3 from your table italic and also with underscore. So that could be a simple instruction. And we can also ask you probably say with the columns that with a number. Yeah, it's doesn't matter which one it is. So these two are with numbers. So if it's instructing you to do something with the columns with numbers, then it will be these two. And if you don't have anything with numbers, then you probably need to reconsider your table, because without that column, you will not be able to fulfill the instruction. So we have 2 here with numbers, and it's possible that instruction asks you to do conditional formatting. Say, give the random color scale that contains a certain information, or we give you a name of the color scale and say we have to use the green, white, and red color scale, and that will be this one. And if it's with another name, then it's with we have to choose another option. So let's choose this one. So that's another instruction fulfilled, and you can explain with the Word document to say why is that make sense in your business. So in this case, for the scale, the higher the scale, the darker the color is. And for the salary, the higher the salary, the darker the color is. So that's the level of explanation you can write in the Word document when asked. It's not so hard, is it? So let's continue. So far we have tried something with basic Excel information and also with the chapter 2.4 about conditional formatting. Let's try some other things. As we listed in our list of topics, there are many more things it's possible for the instructions to ask you. For example, create another sheet and name it as info retrieval, but of course it depends on whether the exact wording the instruction asks you to do. So in this info retrieval part, the instruction may ask you to make the cell B2 and drop down list with all those employee numbers can be chosen as the input. So let's quickly make that. So here we have a drop-down list need to be filled in the cell B2. So we go to data, data validation, and then here we can allow a list. Yeah, this should not be new to you. It's all covered in the course. And the source will be in the other sheet. So it will be here. You see this one already following us. And the source will be this one. But we can select them or we can name it to a word and refer to the word. But this is okay. Click OK. And now we have the number 1 to 13 in our cell B2. So that's the imagined instructions fulfilled again. And we better remember we have something in cell B2. So just for our demonstration, I will mark that as yellow. So for example, another possible instruction would be in cell B4, use the input from B2 and then search for information using VLOOKUP. Right? So when we use VLOOKUP, we have to give the inputs. And according to the instruction I just said, then the input is this one. We want to know the certain information regarding a certain employee, but we will not go back to the table to find that employee because we are going to put in the information here in B2. And the table array will be in other sheet. So we go to the other sheet and select the table array. We select from where the input information started and cover at least where we need the output to be. But in this case, just now I didn't mention any specific output, but just feel free to choose any. But in practice, actually, because everyone is using a unique table, we just cannot control which outputs that you need to give. You can probably will say, no, it has to be in the column number 4 or something, but in the instruction I just mentioned, there isn't any restriction. So here we can say, okay, we want our output to be the name. So that's the column number 2 of the selected table. So we need to write the column index table number as 2. And the range lookup would be an exact match because we want the exact employee number but not a range. So we choose false in this part. And finish this formula and then press enter to go back. Otherwise, the mouse cursor will lead this formula to the other sheet and you don't want to do that. So press enter, not available. So when you see this, do not panic. If you are confident with your formula, because once we are chosen, we have chosen a certain number, this one will work. So this, because we choose the column number 2, this one will give us the output of the name. And in the Word document, again, we refer back to the Word document, you probably need to explain what does the function you choose to do mean for the business. And then in this case, you can write, it means based on the employee number, we can give the output of the name of the employee. Okay, that's an example of how to use the VLOOKUP function. And what if we need to have an if function covered? Let's say in B5, the instruction is this. The instruction asks you to use the if function to create a formula in the cell B5 in the sheet info retrieval and explain us the business meaning of that formula. So that's the instruction. If you want, you can just replay a few seconds back and you can hear that instruction again. Now, we can create a if function as long as we can explain the business usage of it. So let's see what we can define. So here, there are many variables. We can base the if function with the name or with the gender, with the skill, with the salary, etc. Right? So also even nationalities or city. For example, because now we are dealing with a HR example, so you always need to think back to your context whether it makes sense for you as your role to do, whether that makes sense. So for an HR manager, it doesn't make sense to differentiate, say, if you are Chinese, you get a bonus. If you are American, you get a bonus. Or if you are a male, you get a bonus. So that does not make business sense, or it's not acceptable in the society. So it probably will make it harder for you to justify your answer when it comes to the business sense. But what could be relevant is that, let's say, if your salary scale is above a certain threshold, then you can say you are entitled for a bonus. And with that, this table is not enough anymore. We need more data. So we can write down more data here. So let's say the threshold, we can choose anywhere to write down the data if it's not explicitly mentioned in the instruction. So what data we need for our skill differentiation is that which skill should be the difference part, differentiation part. Let's say it's the skill 8. So any skill that is with a lower number than 8, we should give the bonus. And how much is a bonus? Let's say 50. Okay. The reason why we add these two numbers here is that in a formula, we should always refer to a cell to make sure our formula is flexible. So later on, when the threshold changed from 8 to 7, or the bonus changed from 50 to 60, then we can easily just change it here rather than change all the formulas. So we have these two basic information here. Now we work on our if formula. So we have if here, and we need to count here whether the scale is low with a number lower than 8. However, how can we compare? We cannot just say, oh, this scale is here and let's compare this one to the 8, whether this is smaller than 8 or equal to 8. it doesn't make sense because you need all the scale to be compared one by one, and that's not the idea. We need a function that works regardless which person is concerned. We just need the result to be appear in the cell B5. So when it's chosen a different number, then we want to know immediately whether that person is entitled for a bonus or not. Okay, so with the if function, it's a little bit difficult because with this one, we probably need the if and VLOOKUP. Because first, we want to know uh, which scale that person is from. Then we can use the if function to compare that. If you don't use the combination of if and VLOOKUP, and you find another solution, if you listen to my instruction, that will also be correct. Because in the instruction, you will only ask for using if function, but not the combination of if and VLOOKUP. Let me quickly show you how the combination of if and VLOOKUP works if we want to achieve what we just communicated. So here we have a lookup value. The lookup value should also be the number, and then the table array will be in the other sheet the same, oops, the same table array. And now we want to have the output of the scale, so we can just cover these four columns. And then we say the column index number is 4, and the match should be exact match. And here let's press enter. Oh yes. So wait. Do we still have our function? Yes, it's still here. So that's a VLOOKUP that gives us the scale. So this whole part only does one thing, that's to find the scale. And now we can compare that scale to the threshold we have set, that's 8. Yeah, so that scale is not changing, so we need to lock it. Oh, yeah, in this case, actually not. No, we don't need to lock it because we are not dragging it downwards or horizontally. So here is a logical test. We first use the VLOOKUP to find the scale, and then we use the scale to compare to the threshold. And if it's lower, the number is lower than 8, then the value, if true, is that there will be 50 as bonus. And the value if false would be 0. And as I said, that should be referred as a cell. So if we need a 0, we also need 0 somewhere in the other sheet. But we are already in this formula, so let's first choose A9 as our input as value if true, value if false. Then we will come back later to fill this A9 with the number 0. Press enter. So this is 0 already because it's empty, but let's make sure it happens. So also mark this one here to know that this one is referred as a cell in the if function. So for number 12 with the name Duke, the bonus is 0. Let's see if it works with someone else. For number 9, Huang, because the scale is with a lower number than 8, then the salary, the bonus of 50 was issued. So that worked. So this is an even better example. We use the nested function that with if lookup. And if you have another solution that only use if, with this instruction, then it will be awarded points as well. So we kind of killed two birds with one stone. So this is a nested function, and without the VLOOKUP, if you have set certain rules, then it should work also with the if function only. So just now we practiced with a VLOOKUP function and if function with VLOOKUP, but not necessarily. It depends on how you design the, uh, the solution. So you may expect several functions to be asked by the instructions. So it could be a combination of if and, could be a combination of if and or, could be a combination of if and not, could be a combination of if and VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP, and or could be just simply if function and lookup. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, lookup function. Uh, so that's these parts of the exam. So far we have the input control and two examples. And if we have a question about pivot table, and now you already have the input and to do a pivot table. So normally when we have something that starts with A1, then we can choose A1 and select the whole range. But in this case, if we're gonna create a pivot table, we will select the whole range of our table. We cannot just press it here. I assume it's not working. Yeah, but never tried it. Feel free to try it. So we select this whole part and insert pivot table. And we normally ask you to write it in the new worksheet, but of course, if it's indicated otherwise, feel free to change it. So now we have a new worksheet. Change the name again according to the instruction. And then let's see what instruction could be. The instruction could be create a pivot table that contains value in column and values. In that sense, it's a flexible exercise. So let's say we need the name in columns and the city in value. Apparently this one is not working because it's counting the city, so that's not a wise choice. And let's say salary. Okay, this one works with the name and with the salary. So if the instruction is to set a pivot table with value in the column field and with value in the values field, you have already done that. And then you need to explain the business sense behind it. For example, just now we used the count of city as values, and this one is a typical example of not having a business value. So when we say this pivot table solves a problem, that's not true. This pivot table doesn't give us any value, doesn't solve any problem. However, using not city but salary, then you can write down one message to say, all right, for this pivot table, we want to show all the employees' salary in one table. That's justified. Of course, there are many ways to test on pivot table. Could be set a filter or set both column and rows and the filter, but always depends on the instruction. Just do what the instruction says, and very important, make business sense out of it. All right, I think more or less we covered the Excel part. Let's have a look at the list of topics and see if we have missed any topics. Let's see here. Macros not covered, conditional formatting yes, input control yes, basics that will be, yeah, I can mention a few in basics. And pivot table we covered, all these we covered. So you see, not so hard. That's the Excel part. Let me go back and show you an example. How can we ask you about anything uh, the chapter 1? Say if we wanna have a timer, or not a timer, a date that's always showing in the cell E1, and that should be realized by the function today. So just like this, this is an example of how we can test information about chapter 1, some basics. So this is today. With the instruction probably will say in cell E1 write a formula that shows the date of today. And when you open up the Excel tomorrow, it should show the date of tomorrow. And with the similar question, we can also say, should show the date of today, also with time. With the time we open up the Excel. So that will not be realized by today, but instead will be the function now. Let's see if we can. Oops. The function now will not give us time, so my apologies. So forget about that, but just think about the similar ones. How we will use today, or days 360, or average, or sum, and all these small functions covered in chapter 1. But that will be marginal. Let me tell you already, focus on if and VLOOKUP functions, and especially how to combine them together. All right, I think we have covered enough for the Excel part, and let's go ahead to explore what could be done as preparation for Access, and also let's imagine some possible questions for Access. So here we are looking at the interface of a brand new Access file, and we will use a blank database to show you what's expected from you for the assignment, and what can we do with the empty Access file. However, because of the time length of the video, I will stop here and keep this video with only the general information plus the Excel example, and I will leave the Access example in a separate video. Please be informed. I think both links will be end up on the announcement on Brightspace, and comment below if you have any questions regarding to this particular video. And of course, a formal communication would be through your lecture. Thank you very much for viewing this video. Hopefully it gives you a small basic idea of how the assignment works. I will see you in the upcoming video.